Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am honored to join my colleagues on this side of the Assembly to contribute to the $781.9 billion 2023 budget debate under the theme Improving Lives Today, Building Prosperity for Tomorrow. Before I proceed further, Mr. Speaker, kindly indulge me for a few seconds. I take pleasure in extending best and warmest wishes for 2023 to you, your family, and all members of Parliament and their loved ones. And also to commend my colleagues who came before me for a job well done. And I know those coming after me will continue the excellent presentation or performances. It is my desire, sir, to see behavioral change, a collective relationship between the opposition and government members of Parliament this year. It is time, Honorable Priya Manik-Chan, we get it right. Let 2023 be the year of renewal and repositioning. Let us operate with maturity. Let us exude a high degree of professionalism and impartiality. We need to remind ourselves, Honorable Manik-Chan, that we were all elected by the electorate to address their issues and not to attempt to score cheap political party points. The struggle is real, Honorable Priya Manik-Chan, out there. And it is in this House that we, as responsible representatives, ought to find common ground for bettering the lives of our people and moving Guyana forward in accordance with our motto, one people, one nation, one destiny. This one Guyana first continues to divide our people and country. Let's stick with our national motto, which has been the focus of all political parties and our citizens since independence. Quoting from the first paragraph of the poet, or the poem Still I Rise, by the great civil rights activist and poet, the late Maya Angelou. And this is what she had to say, Maya Angelou, and this is what she had to say, Honorable Speaker. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may tread me in the very dirt.
Minister, I've been stopping people using one parliamentary words, even in court, and you've actually used that word twice. I think farce was the first time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Bitter, twisted, beep, beep. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise, unquote. Well, today, I am here to participate in Budget 2023 after being away from this honorable House for 6 months due to the injustice meted out to myself and 7
Honorable member, imputing the matter was taken to the privileged committee and a position was adopted and you have returned. I don't know about any injustice. What about the injustice you caused? The broken mace right before me. Look. You may continue now.
We are all here today. We are all here today. To God be the glory. Mr. Speaker, this 2023 budget is yet another for the enrichment of friends, families, and favorites aligned to the PPPC regime. It has absolutely nothing for the ordinary public servants, our teachers, low-income workers, and other vulnerable communities. This year, I am asking, whose lives did Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh have in mind to improve? Last year's budget was delusional and hopeless for the poor. It is crystal clear that only friends, family, and favorites benefited. These included huge contracts for friends, many of whom neither have the experience or expertise for huge. And Mr. Speaker, just last week, I had the opportunity of being on the quarantine. I heard barbers, vendors from the market became overnight contractors and building roads and bridges. That is why we're having the substandard works before us. And those who benefited from undocumented cash grants and other handouts. These beneficiaries seem set to continue, Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh, on the path of building prosperities for tomorrow. In essence, Mr. Speaker, those whose lives improved last year will continue to benefit, to prosper tomorrow. That is the reality, Honorable. I was anticipating to see in Budget 2023 how this PPPC regime will address the 48% of our population already living in poverty, according to the World Bank report of Guyana, October 2022. Notably also is the information provided by the Food and Agriculture report. And I guess my colleagues on the opposite side of this house, they would have dealt with that particular issue where it speaks to undernourished. Sir, this should be of concern to the regime, since from all indication, Guyana's population is catered for in the total population size. Yet the biggest budget to date from oil revenues made possible by the coalition government is not addressing the needs of the vulnerable communities. The 2023 budget is heavily focused on roads. Priya, it is focused on bridges. Priya, it is focused on other infrastructure, gas to shore project, the new Damara Harbor Bridge, construction of hotels. We just have one behind here, but lacks input for the human and social development needs of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether members from the government have read or taken note of the recent comments on this budget by right-thinking Guyanese. However, I would like to draw the honorable members' attention to G.H.K. Lals. And this is what he quoted Budget 2023. Budget 2023, a measly 1.7% for relief for struggling workers. And this was carried in Village Voice, January 17, 2023. Peeping Tom also added his voice. And this is what he said in his columns of January 18th and 19th. Budget 2023 was crafted in La Land and an accountant's rather than an economist budget. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the GPSU in a headline report carried by Kaicher News, January 21st, 2023, Budget 2023 does not cater for the poor working class. And a letter to the editor, January 19, 2023, and this is what Mr. Norman Brown had to say, budget 2023 is the highest of the country, unquote. The budget is true, Mr. Speaker, the budget is true PPP style, only focuses on macro and not micro. APNU was always a good life for all, which was achieved. The PPP is only about the private sector and the rich getting richer and the poor poor. This was a text message sent to me after the reading of Budget 2023 from a very good friend of mine. And this is what another member had to say from civil society. Mr. Speaker, this too was shared with me. It's 62% growth, yet the tax threshold increase only gives persons 0.5% increase in take-home of salary. Mr. Speaker, as I stated in a letter to the editor some time ago, Guyanese should no longer be taken for granted. People read widely and they internalize things, hence the interesting comments I just shared. Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh, in his introductory remarks, went down memory lane, peddling misinformation to cast aspersions on the PNC and coalition governments. He, however, failed to include the many atrocities and infractions committed on Guyanese by the PPPC between 2010 and 2014, which include the coveting of ancestral lands out at Spar Dam on the east coast of Demerara. The forensic report of October 20th, 2016 tells it all. A copy was laid in the National Assembly by yours truly during Budget 2022. It also, if not all allottees paid below market value, extrajudicial killings, victimization, discrimination, flawed projects, and we've heard it throughout my colleagues' presentations. The Skeldon Sugar Factory expansion project, $220 million US. What an embarrassment. The Amila hydroelectric project, $840 million US. Marriott Hotel, $58 million US. The one laptop per family program, $27 million US. The e-governance fiber optic cable, $32 million US. The specialty hospital, $18 million US. The ongoing travel CGIA expansion, $150 million US. And not forgetting, Mr. Speaker, the troubled Berbice Bridge, where $48 million US was injected. That engendered public criticisms. He also, Mr. Speaker, failed to make mention of all the infractions committed by his regime since their illegal installation to office in 2020. No mention was made of the weaponizing of the courts, abusing of the Constitution, the famous revelations, Mr. Speaker, the famous revelations of Sue Gates and Jack Dio.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order in 416 in relation to imputing improper motive once again, and I can't have on the record that the honourable member has said that there's an illegal installation in office.
An illegal
installation in office. I cannot have that.
I didn't hear that, but I checked the records.
I don't want to interrupt her. I understand she may be in a fragile state.
Honorable Minister, I'll check the record, and if it's
Thank you
so,
very much.
I will make the proper decision. Honorable
Thank you very much.
Member, you may continue, but again, that particular word may have slipped me, but we'll check in. Please
Thank you very
continue.
much. Thank you very much,
And
Mr. Speaker.
When you leave out the words that are unparliamentary, you're going really, really good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And how his regime intends to address the inhumane treatment of our brothers and sisters who were dismissed from their public service jobs and replaced by friends and family of the PPP. Those who had their personal properties bulldozed and demolished in Cane View, Mocha, and removed from ancestral lands they were occupying over 30 years. Mr. Speaker, at paragraph 4.37 of the budget speech under the subhead, sugar, there is a stated figure, and I quote, that over 7,000 sugar workers were severed. If one examines budget speeches of 2022 and 2021, we're getting varying figures. But Mr. Speaker, I want to set the record straight when it comes to the amount of persons who were severed from the sugar industry. Yesterday, my colleague asked or challenged the Honorable Speaker to produce to the National Assembly a list detailing the 7,000 workers that were severed. But Mr. Speaker, the Hansard of 2016, would say this, Mr. Speaker. Or for the records, may I remind and point the members on that side of the House to the official report of the 85th sitting of the National Assembly of Friday, 19th January 2018. And page 5 of that record reveals that the services of 4,763 sugar workers were severed. And I'm going to repeat, 4,763 sugar workers were severed from Gaisuku. The disaggregated figures are as follows, Mr. Speaker. 1,851 workers from Skeldon Sugar Estate, 1,181 workers from Rose Hall Sugar Estate, 1,480 workers from East Demerara Sugar Estate, and 251 sugar workers from the Wales Estate. Mr. Speaker, it will give us a total of 4,763 persons were severed from the sugar industry. The records are there. I'm going to lay it over. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, I like many Guyanese, I'm disgusted at the repeated chorus of 200 new taxes imposed on Guyanese by the coalition. Being sung by the PPPC, after 8 years, Mr. Speaker, they are yet to make public the list detailing these so-called 200 taxes. On the other hand, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member, Mr. Alistair Charity, during his contribution to budget on Tuesday stated, and I quote, increased taxes, VAT on hinterland fuel and travel, unquote. May I encourage the Honorable Member to verify facts and not to involve himself to be immersed in other people's work. However, to dispel the misinformation provided by the honorable member, allow me, Mr. Speaker, to provide the information. And it was carried in Guyana Chronicle, January 31st, 2017, and this is what the headline read: "No VAT on air travel for hinterland residents. Government warns against price gouging." Mr. Speaker, I am going to lay it over so that it can be circulated to the honorable members. Also, Mr. Speaker, the evidence is there to substantiate that in 2018, the coalition government granted amnesty to delinquent taxpayers. Also, there was a reduction on the excise tax on importation of overland transportation, where hinterland regions, Mr. Speaker, benefited. And we can find this in budget speech of 2018, pages 78 through 79. The imposed 16% VAT, Honorable Manichan, by the PPPC in 2000 was amended to 14% by the coalition government. Public servants benefited from a 77% increase in less than 5 years. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the coalition without oil wealth did far more in less than 5 years compared to what my fellow colleagues on the opposite side did not do in 23 years pre-May 2015. Therefore, sir, the coalition government was prudent and better management or managers of our nation's resources. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention to the housing and water sectors, a sector which affects every citizen in Guyana. It is up to remind ourselves that it is a constitutional right for affordable housing to be made available to our people. The provision of housing is pivotal to the achievement of larger development goals such as economic development, social equity, and social cohesion. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the robust implementation of an excellent strategic plan on housing and land use is critical to the alleviation of poverty and improving the quality life for our people. Since being installed into office in August 2020, the PPPC government has sought to give the impression that nothing was done in the housing sector between 2015 to July 2020. Sir, in 2017, an assessment was done to determine the state of the housing sector. The findings were quite disturbing, since the housing program implemented over the previous 2 decades focused primarily on divestment of land and development of the services and schemes. Despite the intended purpose of the CHPA, there was no robust strategy for the housing of low income and those at the lower end of the middle income earners bracket. Further, Mr. Speaker, what the honorable members who sit at the helm of this sector will not report to the nation is that the model used pre-May 2015 was unsustainable, thus causing approximately 28,000, which is equivalent to 45% of the 63,257 lots allocated to remain unoccupied. This, sir, was because of many factors such as affordability issues, lack of social facilities and services, inadequate and incomplete infrastructure, proximity to economic opportunities, and the challenges associated with households accessing finances to undertake their own home ownership. Mr. Speaker, members of the House should know that during the 2011-2015 period, because of the model I alluded to earlier, witnessed a far lower occupancy level of approximately 18.7%. Listen and learn, madam, listen and learn. While we constantly hear the drumming and the beating of 50,000 house lots by this PPPC regime and the billions invested thus far, we are yet to see and hear of a housing vision or a housing policy. Contrast this with the coalition government's approach to housing. We had a plan from 2017 to 2020 was to avail 10,000 housing units. We also charted a new policy direction for the housing sector, promised on the following: higher density schemes, Mr. Speaker, which speaks to the issue of construction of townhouses, apartments, etc. Right? Relocation and resettlement of persons who occupy unregulated lands. Consolidation of existing housing schemes, that is to ensure that infrastructure, the incomplete infrastructural works, Madam Rodriguez, that was left pre-May 2015, that is what we were going to do. Mr. Speaker, I know I'm getting them hot. I'm getting them hot when it comes to housing. Tickling them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, partnership with co-op societies. Mr. Speaker, you know, a picture tells 1,000 words. We're hearing about LBI. We distributed lands at LBI, but this is the state at LBI. A pasture at the moment. This is what ordinary people are going through. Lowlands, rather than taking the bulldozer and all the machines you all took into Caneville to bulldoze people, you should have taken those very machines to LBI and get the people lands ready. Mr. Speaker, look, the cows grazing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, look, waste of taxpayers' money, all the pipelines, there's no infrastructure. You know, Mr. Speaker, I was the photographer on the ground. Look what is happening, all the pipelines, Mr. Speaker. On entering the area, Mr. Speaker, I noticed 6 piles of Wallaby posts, the Lord Lantern posts to implant for electricity, and up to now, you cannot, the people who got their titles and who got their allocation, they cannot access those lands. Mr. Speaker, you know what is happening? The monies, close to 29 billion for 2022. You know where the monies are being spent? The monies are being spent on the Mandela to Eccles Road. Look what is happening there. Huge structures are going up. When you have the ordinary Guyanese, the ordinary public servants who cannot access their lands to start construction. Mr. Speaker, this is a bridge in the LBI area. This area is currently underwater. Mr. Speaker, another picture tells the story. Mr. Speaker, at number 75 Village, this is what is happening, Madam Susan Rodriguez. This is what is happening. And all we're hearing, well, tell you there's no work currently ongoing where these lands are constructed. This is what is happening, sir.
Honorable member, this is what is happening now. You'll need an extension.
Thank you. Comrade Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable member, you have 5 minutes to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while I applaud the government for building a few houses in the Commons Lodge area, I did a site visit, Mr. Speaker, and this is what is currently existing in the Commons Lodge area. No contractors on site, Mr. Speaker, and this is what is happening when our people are waiting for housing. Mr. Speaker, you know they said we didn't do anything in the housing sector, but let me just run through quickly, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, they were able to inherit from us a $34.5 million US dollars. And this is to provide sustainable subsidies for core homes support and home improvement subsidy. We also had the IDB funded for the National Housing Strategy. That is to show that we were thinking. We are a government that really want, have the ordinary people at our hands. Mr. Speaker, we were able to, they're saying that we never develop housing schemes across this country. But Mr. Speaker, it would be unfair of me not to at least highlight the achievements of the coalition government. We were able to develop 22 new housing schemes, Madam Susan Rodriguez. We were able to expend close to $3 billion in installation of electrical installation. Mr. Speaker, we expended $2.7 billion to fix the substandard works at the 1,000 housing projects there in Perseverance. Mr. Speaker, we upgraded roads in CHPS schemes, regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. Mr. Speaker, I know my time is running, but I know for a fact that we did a whole lot of work in the water sector, Mr. Speaker. We improved water quality and testing countrywide. GWI negotiated and executed a smart meter plan. We replaced over 100 manhole and 100 sewage chamber across the capital city of Georgetown, and the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I now turn briefly my attention to the high cost of living. But Mr. Speaker, you know what? I was able to examine budget 2023, and in the budget, I cannot find any provisions for Silica City. But Guyanese are being romanced. Guyanese are being told about this new city, Silica City. Is this another Padovale tree? I'm just asking a question. Mr. Speaker, the high cost of living is killing our people. And I would want to say to the government, for the mortgage relief ceiling, I would like to recommend to this government. You love public servants so well. You speak so highly of them. Many of them, you said that 12,000 will now move from the threshold. So I'm saying to you, it is time the government find workable solutions to help our public servants access loans. If you got to call in the banks, work with them so that our people can have access. Someone who is earning at 81,000, a take home might be 20,000. That woman cannot go to the bank with 20,000 to access a $20 million loan. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, Mr. Speaker, the PPPC regime must act responsibly in the use of our financial and other resources for the benefit of all Guyana. The opposition has throughout this week made several brilliant recommendations which the regime should consider and have included in the budget. Let's work together to make this $781.9 billion budget one that begins the positive transformation of the lives of all Guyanese. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, for the reasons advanced earlier, with a heart of compassion and love, I cannot give support to the budget in its current formation. Finally, sir, I leave Galatians 6:7 for us to meditate on. And this is what it says: do not be mocked. God is not mocked, for whoever, for whatever a man soweth, that will he also reap. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, what this scripture is saying to us: if you sow evil, you will reap evil. If you sow good, you will reap good. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. May God continue to bless us, and may God continue to bless our dear land, Guyana.
Amen.